There's a time I used to describe it as I am too playful with with my career options. When someone told me I should reframe it and say that I was open to exploring. Yeah, having an open mind in terms of what a career path would look like, so that your focus is not just on a role name or a specific organization, but maybe looking at industries in general. I think even when it comes to networking, I think a lot of people usually go with, hey, and this and this. What I've seen to be helpful is, yes, obviously introducing yourself and what you do. I think showing the value that GIS or any field that you're sort of focused in would be useful to them. Even just talking about the industry in general, how certain things would be useful to them helps. I think people would rather bet on value, yeah, as opposed to a person instead. At our core, we say we usually believe that drones on land, on air, and under the sea can give citizens a powerful way to better understand the
One.
world.
We are up. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the GeoHabari podcast. I'm your host, Yariwo Kitio, and I'm pretty excited about this new episode. On this episode, I'm going to have a very interesting conversation with a very brilliant guest. We're going to talk about her career transition, and where I thought this conversation was very interesting is how unconventional her career journey has been, which is very inspirational. And I wanted to get her perspective on a couple of things and even her carving out her niche, what that looked like. And so, we'll get into that conversation. But before we get into it, I'll have our guest introduce herself and then we'll jump right into the episode. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Ariel. Really glad to connect with you on this today and to discuss some more. Yeah.
I'm so happy to have you, Laura, and I'm a big fan. First, you can introduce yourself briefly, and then I want us to do some quick fire questions before we get into the conversation.
All right. I'm Laura Mugeha. I'm currently based in Nairobi here in Kenya, and I introduce myself as a geospatial engineer, or sometimes I say I'm a geospatial engineer by training, because of my background and the course that I did pursue in university. But I currently work as a technical community coordinator at Code for Africa, for two initiatives called AfricanDrone and Sensors.AFRICA. Maybe we talk about that later during this conversation. But that's who I am in a nutshell. Within the GIS space, I'm very much interested in the use of geospatial technology for social goods. So my interests are usually in the impact space, in the development space, and even to further that down, I guess, because of this focus, I also tend to work a lot with open data and free and open source geospatial software. So that also comes up a lot within the work that I do, and also other sort of avenues that I do support through volunteering as well.
Thanks, Laura. And I like to point out, like, you wear so many hats, and I can't wait to get into what that looks like and just your perspective on your niche and what you currently do. And I like that you've mentioned, like, you're a technical community coordinator, which is also something we'll get into, and the projects you're supporting at Code for Africa. So, we'll get into the quick fire and then. Yeah, and then we'll get into the conversation. So the first one would be, if you could have any superpower in your tech career, what would it be?
Hmm. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I would say being able to sort of see the future. I don't know the one word for that. I feel like the tech space is always changing. Almost every other day there's a new thing. So I feel like having an
Yeah.
upper hand and knowing what's coming in tomorrow that would be useful or helpful. I think that would be an insane superpower to have.
Oh, that's a smart choice. Then the second one is based on, you're a technical community coordinator currently. If you could organize a user group meetup anywhere in the world, where would that be? And what would the meetup be about?
Yeah, so many places to choose from, but I guess I would choose the best place that I've visited so far, which was in Namibia. Why there? It's just that I don't know. I'd say I'm more of an introvert, so I really loved that the country is not as crowded, the streets are not as full, but I also liked the weather down there, and there's also quite a lot for people that to do even after the convening. So many new things to explore and so many things to learn about about the country. In terms of what people would convene for, I would, since it's something that I'm of my choice, I would say something that cross cuts the different things that I'm interested in. So maybe a conference on open technology, and maybe specifically open geospatial technology within the impact space, and just have different players coming in to share those experiences in an unconference way. So out of like the formalities that we are used to, where you go to a conference with a speaker that people are listening, and that's just it. So looking at very interesting methods of learning from each other and presenting and sharing. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And I like that your location is very, and I don't know why I didn't expect it to be that. So I'm very fascinated and blown away at the same time. And then the last one is describe your dream location based app in one sentence. Your dream location based app.
Hmm. Well, that's so many of those. I'm like trying to go through my or to think about like some of the crazy ideas that I've had, but maybe I would go with some sort of management app for the government, just because of recent occurrences within the country. I think having some sort of harmonized, let me just say, budgeting and management platform that would allow the government to better manage resources, specifically financial resources, and having this interfacing in a way that people also have an idea of what's happening in the different counties and locations that they're based in. I think some counties might already have this, and maybe we just don't know about it. But I think, yeah, just utilizing geospatial technology in this case, I think would be very helpful, and it's very crucial. And I think would help in terms of even developing the country better, and even for more informed conversations when it comes to how resources are being used and managed nationally. Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. I think a component of transparency is really good in governance and knowing where our resources are. That's it on like our quick fire questions, guys. I hope that was useful and you know a thing or two about Laura outside of what she does and where her interests lie. I think for a start, I want us to like get a go on like a journey towards your tech career and what that looks like. And so for you currently being a technical community coordinator, do you mind talking about some of the monumental career transitions that you think have got you to where you are currently? So maybe starting with probably your initial jobs and how you got into that and how monumental you think they shaped your path into what you currently do.
Cool. Yeah. So I think for me, even to be on my role at the moment, I feel like what I studied in school is a key experience in this case. So I studied at JQuat and I pursued JGs. Many people went there, refer to it as, but it's geomatic engineering and geospatial information systems. And while studying in school, at some point, I think from third year, I got interested in like doing some more in terms of contributing to student clubs and student clubs that were doing, I'd say, impactful work in one way or the other. Within our university, we already had a geospatial focused club where we met, like, I think every week on Thursday, just either to go through a certain concept where a student either shared how a certain tool works, or how to conduct some kind of analysis somewhere, and also inviting in speakers. And these were mostly people who studied the course and then they're already in the workplace, and they would come back to share with us their different parts and what they're doing, just to give us a glimpse of what life after school would look like. So within this club, at this point already, I had already gotten my interests when it came to open data. I was already contributing like to the OpenStreetMap community, so I sort of kickstarted a chapter there. So we affiliated the club within this network called Youth Mappers, and I think that affiliation sort of is what showed me what community management would look like, because we had to organize activities for the club, either if it was training sessions, either if it was mini projects, and so much more. So I sort of got the experiences of bringing not necessarily bring people together since the club already existed, but sort of mobilizing and working with people to be able to conduct a certain project within the community that is impactful, while at the same time learning and contributing to the open data ecosystem in general. Outside of that, then I also did a lot of volunteering work in this line. So in terms of the community management and engagement space, because I'm sure if someone is listening in, they might be wondering, okay, if you did GIS, then where did you learn about community and how did it come in? So yeah,
Yeah. At what point do you realize there's a whole ecosystem around mobilizing and community management?
yeah. So when it came to the OpenStreetMap community, basically, it was mentioned in class. There's a lecturer of ours who was teaching us. I remember it was a JS class. I don't remember the exact name. But she did mention that she still works at APHRC, and they do a lot of work within in using GIS in, I think, healthcare, and also quite a focus when it comes to marginalized communities and informal settlements. So, as part of our work, she was using OpenStreetMap in her research work and also for various projects at the workplace. So she mentioned it in class, just the same way like a lecturer would be teaching something, and then like took a while just to explain it. Then I think after that class, I just went and like signed up just to explore and see, okay, what's this thing about, because it seemed interesting. So I think the good thing with the internet is that once you go to a platform, especially when it's already online, you get a lot of information and just get to sort of go down a rabbit hole and learn everything about it. So, in as much as it was a platform that you can go to, you can contribute to, and get your data, I think one thing that stood out is that everything was sort of self organized. So, it was not that there's a big corporate behind it that's managing and guiding everything, although there's a foundation that does a lot of, I'd say, the bigger administration stuff. But I think what I learned is that, like, most of the contributions are very self-led and very much organized by volunteers. So say for example, you are a person, you're interested in making open geospatial data in Kenya more available, and you want to do it through creating this data on OpenStreetMap. So basically, you just make the decision to actually either start contributing individually, or you actually lobby and bring people together to be able to make this contribution a bit bigger. Because that's also the thing with OSM, that yes, everyone can contribute on their own, but most of the impact is seen when people are coming in together, when thousands of people, hundreds of people are gathering in together to contribute to a project or to come up with a project and all of that. So I think that's what intrigued me in terms of you've seen a gap that exists. You've seen how you can contribute, and there's like a lot of resources that you can already utilize for you to be able to fill in this gap. So like the, what do you call it? Like the space between idea and implementation is very minimal. So I think I'd say that's where I learned a lot when it comes to community. And then now creating the Youth Mappers chapter, then like actually put me like in the shoes of now leading sort of some sort of leading community, even as a student and on a voluntary basis. And now not just working with different people, but actually leading the execution of either projects or organizing and all of that. But outside of that, really, I also just did a bunch of volunteer work out of the university itself. So I also organized a number of conferences. At that time, we had this, I think it's still there. There's an organization called African Women in Tech. So we organized conferences across the African region, in Kenya, in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, so many in Nigeria as well. So I happened to have attended an event here in Nairobi, and I found someone who works there, and basically they just had like a booth, and they're explaining what they do, and if people wanted to join, you just sign up. So in addition to joining, I just asked, would you actually need help in terms of organizing these conferences and running your activities? And I wouldn't say that I have experience, but I think it would be an opportunity to just learn how this works and everything. And I think luckily they were actually organizing a Kenyan conference at the time. So I did join them as a volunteer at the start. In terms of, I think my focus was on like speakers. So inviting speakers, coming up with like the conference program, preparing them to speak at these conferences, which was also quite amazing. I think that's where like I learned a lot when it comes to events and coordination and planning, and not just events but actually technical events. I feel like there's a difference in the two. There's a different way in terms of how you would organize like a technical tech event versus a normal, say, social event. So yeah, that really opened my eyes when it came to that space, and also just seeing why this work is important outside of like our normal, I'd say like what you're used to in terms of how we work, where you go to work, you go back home, you go to school, you go back home. So like I saw the impact of like community when it comes to industry. So just building sort of some sort of third places within our careers to bring people together, um, and all of that. Then I'd say those are like the main ones that really grew me in terms of community. But I really did volunteer on a bunch of other things. While just there in university, I was a campus ambassador for Moringa School. Just trying to at that time Moringa was, I'd say, starting or had a couple of weeks, and yeah, we basically were creating some sort of awareness of their work within the university, especially because their focus was on software development. Again, within our course, these are things that we did cover, but I think at that time, programming and coding was not as mainstream as it is right now. So just sharing and having people know about it, and then if they are aware, either they go to Moringa and enroll in their courses, or also at times it's just to kickstart your journey yourself if you're using your own resources as well. Then, as part of that, we also used to organize the Nairobi Tech Week conference every year. So, yeah, there are a bunch of other things that I think, I don't know if they'd be useful. Yeah.
These are very useful, and I like that you've really broken it down for us on all the different engagement points that got you into, the technical community coordination and management space. And I think the other thing that would be interesting to get your perspective on is, like, you see how when you're in a technical career, especially when you're in a GIS space, sometimes it feels like your niche is kind of already predetermined based on some of the roles we used to see initially when you're getting into the space. And we rarely, okay, let me talk about myself. I rarely saw roles around what you're talking about, which I think makes me very fascinated about this journey and how important it is for us to get a perspective on, like, carving out that niche. So, like, for guys who are starting out, especially for, like, majority of audience are like young people, are there tips and tricks you'll give around someone who wants to take this path the same way towards technical community coordination or management? And, like, what are the pro tips that worked for you? I'm getting a lot of it comes with an intersection of you positioning yourself and being able to express yourself and see opportunities where maybe the owners of the event don't see. And so I don't know if you can talk about that, what your approach towards that and how you positioned yourself even when you're having these conversations with some of these communities.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that there are tips per se, since in my case, I think I was just more open to exploring the spaces and like what was available to me. At the time, I used to describe it as I am too playful with with my career options, but but someone told me I should reframe it and say that I was open to exploring. But I think but I think it's actually just the case. Like whenever I'd say opportunities came through, I think for me, since especially for most of this they are on a voluntary basis or on a part-time basis, I think it's just that I was interested in the impact and I felt like I could help in one way or the other. And I just went in to help out without necessarily knowing that, okay, it will lead to something, but at least knowing that I was able to offer support to this project, to this initiative in one or the other. Because I think still for me, when I was even in my last year of uni, and even the sort of internships that I think I'd also done just afterwards, it still wouldn't seem like I was headed this way. except for maybe, okay, my last academic attachment, I did that at Kibera, which also has really been crucial when it comes to the work that I've done with OpenStreetMap and Open Technology, because I think that was the only workplace that or the first workplace that I went to that who I saw like a group of people or an organization that are fully utilizing the sort of open and free and open ecosystem in their work through and through. And then it also gave me like a different perspective on like in terms of now working with community, like local community and people with living in different places in terms of engaging with them for projects. So I'd say it's just, yeah, like being open to sort of exploring. I think at times we might be in spaces, but because you are fixated in what you're trying to get at, maybe you may tend to forget what's actually available in terms of what you can do, what how you can contribute. Say for example, you are a student, you have finished uni, and I think maybe you are already interested in a specific sector and you're only fixated in getting a JS analyst role, a JS intern in company X, Y, and Z, you might only focus on those and maybe not see other avenues where you can gain technical experiences, other avenues where you are able to support through volunteering, and also other skills that still might be useful but are not maybe fully GIS related. So I'd say just keeping an open mind, especially when maybe things are not yet clear or opportunities are not easily available. Just being able to still see the bigger picture and see what you can contribute to, how you can help, and just also having an understanding, especially at the moment. I think unemployment is still a very big issue, especially when it comes to young people. So, still just trying to, yeah, having an open mind in terms of what a career path would look like. So that your focus is not just on a role name or a specific organization, but maybe looking at industries in general, maybe looking at not just internships, looking at fellowships that someone can also pursue and all of that. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say the only tip I'd give is just being open-minded, and I guess also having the courage to explore. I think it's also very courageous to explore something else. If anything goes really bad, it's just that you've learned a new skill, and you can always pivot back. You can always change back. Yeah.
So let me go back a bit. For example, like for the Map Kibera, Laura, and you getting that opportunity, are there instances where you have seen an organization or you probably come across an organization, but you are the one initiating a role that you think would be useful for them or a position that you think would be useful for them, and then you'd pitch that and then get that opportunity? Like, have you had that scenario where you're the one suggesting a niche or suggesting what would work based on where you're coming from, and then they take that up and then that gives you an opportunity?
Yeah, I would say so. Although this did not happen with Mapkibera, it's something similar happened, because also how I even got the academic attachment is that at this point we had already created the Youth Mappers chapter, and then when we had created it, one of the things that we had done is we had invited them to come and share with us what the organization does and the focus and everything. I remember by the time I was supposed to do my academic attachment, I still had not gotten any places, which even goes back to my previous point. I think I was not exploring even Mafkibera as an option or and all of that. And then I think we went to an event and I met one of the people who works there, who's also really been influential in this journey. Yeah, and at that event, I remember the event was at KU at Yali. When the event, we're just talking, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, does your organization offer attachments or internships? If so, I'd like to come. If you have any projects, I'm happy to contribute and help out." So I'd say that suggestion came in that way, and I was able to get into the organization after a while, I think. But a role that I'd say came in as a suggestion was my first job. So I did work at this organization called the Synergy Collaborative. again, for this, maybe one thing that stands out from the conversation today, that events are good and also good places for networking. Yeah, I was helping out with this event called the Nairobi Ideation Lab, which was basically like a 3 day kind of design event that brought together professionals from different disciplines and sectors. And the focus was that they would work in teams to design a lean and sort of human centered startup. So some sort of hackathon, but not really, because we're not necessarily coding, but then just working through things of user experience and designing what startups in the sanitation sector for informal settlements would look like. And this is actually something that I had found online after university, I think, while looking for opportunities, and then I just signed up, and then we were able to support as volunteers. So one of the components of um, that event was there was a networking session. So I met the founder there. Although I had already known some things about the organization, I knew they had done some sort of mapping, but they had done it through a consultancy with the GIS company here in Nairobi. So I already knew they had some GIS work done by another company to support them. But it's just like the conversation I had with him was, don't you think like it would be useful to have a long-term GIS sort of person within the organization? And he was like, yeah, I can see the importance of that and how that would be useful and everything. And then I think he gave me his card and just told me to write him an email. So yeah, I just wrote an email, sort of explaining who I am, how I feel I would be helpful to the team in terms of having a long-term GIS function.
Help us know how to pitch.
Yeah, just writing how I think a long-term GIS function would be useful. And at that time I'm actually applying for an intern position, so it's also just odd writing it. Uh, yeah, but I wrote an email, and then I think I can't remember the dates nicely, but I think after a few weeks I got a reply and I had an interview scheduled, and then yeah, after the interview, I got in as an intern. They call them fellows within the organization, as opposed to an intern where maybe you work on a project for the 3 months that you're there, and then yeah, there's possibilities to grow with the organization. So yeah, I did work with them there. Worked on a number of projects when it came to JS and sanitation. Also did a bunch of other work. Yeah, and ended up working within the organization for 4 years, although in different roles. Yeah, which was interesting. Yeah.
So what I'm getting, Laura, and girl, this is such a learning moment for me as well. So what I'm getting is a lot of it revolves around you attending events, but not just that, you being vocal about some of the opportunities you're seeing within the events you're attending, and you being brave enough to approach these people and give them your perspective of how you think you'll be useful for these organizations.
And I think it's not even just, I think even when it comes to networking, I think a lot of people usually go with, hey, and this, and maybe go ahead and ask me, maybe do you have opportunities within the organization? But I think what I've seen to be helpful is, yes, obviously introducing yourself and what you do, but showing I think showing the value that GIS or any field that you're sort of focused in would be useful to them. And even at times it's not just useful to them, but just talking about the industry in general, how certain things would be useful to them. I think that's what helps. I think people would rather bet on value um, that they might get out of it, as opposed to a person, yeah, as opposed to a person instead. So I think maybe a good thing just to consider when it comes to networking, sort of being more focused on sharing how your experiences or the whatever skills that you have would bring value, as opposed to maybe what you do and all of that. Yeah.
And so this gives me to the like the way you're saying initially you're describing what you're doing as you being too playful with different experiences, and someone asked you to sort of paraphrase that to you open to exploring. As you're doing this, because I'm seeing this as something that's very unconventional. What are the struggles you're going through? Are you seeing people like you? Are there misconceptions about your journey? Are you experiencing any moments of confusion or whether you're a techie or not? Like, what's going through your head at this particular point in time and the challenges you're experiencing through this journey?
Yeah. So I'd say the challenges are mostly what you've mentioned, and I think I'd say the biggest one would be for me. I think it was like internal battles with myself. So sort of just understanding where you are and like what you had initially thought you would be, or where you had thought you'd be. So it still feels strange knowing that, okay, this is what I studied in school. This is what I expected and envisioned to do. It's not there. Like it's like not 100% there, but maybe has some things to do with it. So say, for example, for some of the roles that I had held on as in Synergy, they were mostly data forecast. At times I got to work with geospatial data, but my roles were not necessarily GIS analyst, geospatial engineer, GIS developer. Even though my day-to-day tasks looked like that, like I still felt some kind of way, just not having the title at the start. Like, I don't know, for some reason at that point, it meant a lot to me. So, I think the greatest challenge was just having those internal battles. Yeah, seeing and trying to understand where you are at, and also I think that also made me to worry a lot about what the future would be like and all of that. Then the other thing, as you've mentioned, you're not seeing people similar with similar roles or people taking similar paths. So, okay, within the general tech space, I would say there were people that I had seen, people done engineering, software development, but now focusing on community roles. So, say, for instance, within the software engineering ecosystem, we have people like developer advocates, people who are in developer relations. So, I would see the similarities there. But when it came to seeing someone who has a geospatial background, but doing this work, it was almost non-existent. Even if I looked globally, I think I couldn't find anyone or see anyone on a similar path doing it full time. So that was also difficult in terms of what conversations look like. Because I think also when maybe even you go to events and conferences, I think the conversations that you have are usually very dependent on your current work and what you do. So it became difficult. Should I go to GIS conferences at all? Would it be useful in a way or the other? I'd say just some sort of existential crisis in terms of figuring out, okay, what's right, what's not right. Then the last thing I would mention is within now the organizations that you work in, you're like the go-to person or the only person focusing on this. So say, for example, for the first role that I had, even as a fellow, and it was focused on GIS. I think as an intern, people are usually looking forward to like sort of being technically mentored into the role. I do not mean that sort of just being like working on a supporting role, but having someone cross-checking and checking your T's and dotting your I's, and that's just something that wasn't there. So it was like the work that you produce has to be sort of good enough for you to be able to distill that to an NGIS audience on how this is useful and how that is helpful. So that was a little bit difficult for someone who's just sort of getting started, not sort of having that internal point of reference for support and all of that. But I think also I ended up anyways being a learning curve, just being able to know how you can be self-sufficient and be able to take on different kind of shoes and be able to actually produce good work. I think it's actually also really good to see, okay, you did this work that was very helpful for this kind of project and you can see the impact of it. I think at such a young stage in the career journey, I think it was really useful and good to see. And I think also even things that I look back still from time to time and sort of I end up still being amazed on some of the things that I was able to work on and contribute to. Yeah.
I want us to sort of get into your role and what you're currently doing at Code for Africa. And I think that will give the audience also a very good perspective of what a day to day looks like for someone who's in the technical community coordination space. So I want us to debunk that, your role as a community coordinator within at Code for Africa. What does that mean? What does your day to day look like for you? And how different is it from, I know initially you'd mentioned when we are just starting out that when you're organizing a technical event, it's very different from when you're doing an untechnical event. And so you're at this point where you're on the technical side of community coordination. But yeah, for a start, what does that look like? What does that mean for your role within Code for Africa and what you do?
Yeah, so I'd start first by just explaining like the work that the role focuses on. So I'm a community coordinator for two initiatives. One is called AfricanDrone, which is the community aspect of it is that it's a self-help network for drone professionals and enthusiasts who are interested in using drones for good. So not just that we are promoting drone technology, which is a very we usually say it's a very new field within the continent, just because I think a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, most of the countries still did not have regulations and the know-hows to work around it. So we less less than a decade to go in terms of what the technology means for the industry and the different industries that use it. So yeah, our focus is mainly on just advocating for the use of drones for social good. And within this self-help network, we are offering seed funding for drone pilots to conduct community projects. We are also offering skills development through different capacity building initiatives. So if it's through things like master classes, webinars, online courses, and all of that, then also a lot of resource sharing when it comes to just making sure people are aware of what's actually available. So from different opportunities that we are seeing online. And then lastly is that we're also offering networking opportunities for them. So at our core, we say we usually believe that drones on land, on air, and under the sea can give citizens a powerful way to better understand the world and to improve public accountability. We basically are organizing all these pilots within the space. So when I joined, I'd say that there'd already been a network. So we already had around 1,000 drone pilots, licensed drone pilots across the continent. So it was sort of just sort of creating the spaces for them to work with each other and all of this. Then the sort of second, I sort of support two initiatives or projects sort of long term. Second one is Sensors Africa, and it's a citizen science initiative that uses low cost sensors to monitor air, water, and sound pollution. And so that we say the public can have actionable information about their cities. So how that looks like is that we have people who we call custodians who are able to host sensors, either if it's within their homes, if it's within their businesses, or different institutions like schools. And then we are collecting data on all these aspects, mostly air pollution. And then we are sharing all this information openly for everyone to use. So it's more of an open data solution. But I think one of the cool things about sensors is that it's not just an open data sort of platform. So if you're looking for data on air quality, you can go to. But I think also how the technology is built is that it's built on open source software. So I think also that was also a very big interest for me in terms of just seeing all these previous experiences and knowledge would come in here. So within also sensors, we are now creating a new community called EcoSense Collective, where we are bringing in together a quite diverse sort of a group of people. So not just environmental scientists, but also technologists. So data scientists, software developers, journalists, students who are interested in environmental monitoring. So that basically we are creating spaces for collaboration in terms of using open data and technology for uh, environmental monitoring. So for both of these roles, it's sort of working through with the initiatives themselves to build community around them. through, I think, some of the things that I'd already mentioned earlier. So a lot when it comes to capacity building, connecting people. Also goes a lot to do with stakeholder management and engagement and working with partners across different things. So my day to day is usually around those things. So just thinking about, especially, I think a lot of work goes into capacity building because both communities are pretty much new in terms of like these are new things that people are exploring. For example, when it comes to environmental monitoring, it's really been something that people are interested in lately, obviously because of the impact of climate change that we are seeing across our cities. So a lot of people are really at the learning stage and trying to see, okay, within my role, with my work, what can I do to be able to make sure that I'm promoting sustainability in one way or the other. So a lot of work really goes into the capacity building aspect. So at times it's just working around organizing and seeing, okay, what topics would be useful to community members to be able to learn us about a certain concept. Or at times is actually like there's a real actually gap that you're seeing, and you're actually organizing things around it for to build around a certain community challenge or a problem that is actually affecting people. So I'd say my day to day mainly focuses on that capacity building aspect, but then from time to time, I'm also working on different things. Then for both initiatives as well, we also have internal projects that we get to run. So I also contribute to those projects as well on a day to day basis. I think last thing I would mention in terms of just the main things that usually do stand out or come up skills that I leverage, I guess, on a day to day. First thing I'd say is program and project management. I think very key, very crucial for such a role. You especially, for example, for me, I'm juggling between two spaces with different teams, with different kinds of people. So program management, project management really is really handy in this case. Then it also requires a lot of foundational knowledge. Say, for example, even for drone technology, for me, I think I'd say it's just also, I don't know if I'd say I was lucky that at the time I'd already taken some classes when it came to becoming a drone pilot. So, because basically you can't manage a community where you do not have the skills in. So, yeah, I get to leverage a lot of background knowledge that I already have from my geospatial background. It really does come in handy into this. Then also, obviously, the experiences with working with different kinds of people when it came to community engagement and management also come in here. So I'd say sort of technical community management. That's how it's a bit different. And I also had mentioned earlier, like, okay, so even for an activity like on organizing an event to totally look different because you are sort of bringing in experiences and technical knowledge within the industry to be able to organize these spaces. So, lastly, I think I'd mentioned like a bit of data analytics that comes into this. You're working with communities. Obviously, you have a lot of what we call community data. So you have profiles of maybe members or people that you would be interested in joining your communities. So you also have to look into the data and see what's coming out. So say, for example, if for African drone within the community, we have all kinds of people. We have JS people, so people are using drones in mapping, but we also have videographers, photographers, and all kinds of people. Say, for example, if I were to keep hosting or having all my capacity building initiatives are only focused on drone mapping, then it means this other group of people would be left out. So, and you can only be able to see that by looking at your data and seeing, okay, who's here, who's not here, and what am I offering. And also, in the process, also you end up collecting a lot of data on feedback,
Yeah.
on even things like attendance to the things that you're organizing, and you're able to. You'd need data analytics skills to look into that, and that to be able to help you to know, okay, how can I improve? What can we change? What should we focus on and what should we not focus on? Yeah.
I like how you've broken it down for us to get a very clean perspective of what it means to do what you do. And I like that you even mentioned like some of the skills you're leveraging still from your background and your GIS knowledge within that journey and within your day to day, are there like unconventional skills that you bumped into that you didn't think would be very useful, but suddenly you probably have to do another training, or you probably have to use a skill that you never thought you would need to use?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I don't know if it's unconventional, but I'd say I'd say writing and particularly technical writing. So just being able to work through like different aspects of it. There's a lot of reporting that goes into this kind of roles. So yeah, I'd say writing was is one of them. I'd then also say marketing in a way, which I wouldn't say. Okay, there's some the problem with me is that like, yeah, I've ended up doing some insane things. Not insane, okay, but unconventional
Mhm.
things. So I've done some marketing before, but not like in a community or in the impact space, like really marketing in itself. But I think like there's some bits of it that you can borrow to be able to sort of carry out outreach. So because you have to sort of, especially in my case, since the communities are sort of new, you have to bring in people. I think an assumption is that things would market itself. Like you just need, okay, to have African drone out there and like people would see it and join it. But you actually have to share about it and sort of convince people. Just I guess in this case it would just be creating awareness, and then if it matches
Mhm.
someone's interests, they're able to join. But I think, yeah, in some way, marketing and like just sort of being able to promote and advocate for something. But I think also that I got maybe some bits of that while working with OpenStreetMap, because again, for the same, when we were starting, it was a pretty much new thing. So it really meant talking to people about it, sharing about it, and having people interested enough to join in. The last thing I'd say is also just communication in general. Just learning how to talk to people in a way, because again, you see, in this case, people who are joining in as your community members, they are doing their own work. Maybe they're only coming into your sessions after their work. Even in the groups that they're in, these are not like what do you call it? They're not like regulating bodies like, I don't know, IEEE or ISK or EBK, where maybe someone would really want to be there just because of like maybe the licensing that comes with it. But it's sort of for these communities, people are choosing to be there. So just sort of, I guess, learning how to talk to people, just understanding where they are. Sort of also just understanding that I think one of the big things also about community roles is like it's like a caring role in a way. Basically, you're taking care of them. You are providing all these resources to them. There's a way in which you can only deliver it. Say for like I can't keep like a tone where I'm sort of demanding from people, or I don't know. There's just a way that you would need to talk to people. Yeah, just because of like the dynamics of the spaces and all. Yeah, I'd say those are the main ones. Some I think some other things I've also just gone out of my way and like done some community sort of management courses that are online. Some of the things that I usually mentioned there, that are times you need to have like conflict resolution skills. But I think for most of us, maybe we might have seen this in like some of the WhatsApp groups that we are or communities that we are in. At times you see that maybe people might end up having an argument. It tends to happen since anyway, this in these spaces people do share their opinions. So at times people might have differing opinions and it ends up getting heated. In my case, I haven't really encountered such a situation. But yeah, I know for a lot of community managers, they usually end up having to have conflict resolution skills and knowing how to sort of coming and resolve such situations and bring people together. And I don't know, at times maybe setting boundaries and all of that. So that would also come in handy, I guess, yeah. But yeah, I think those are the main ones that stand out in terms of what I've been able to experience so far.
Those are very useful, and they're quite interesting, like components that no one, we would have never thought of as a techie. So thank you. This is very useful even for someone who wants to sort of have a similar path and figure out what are some of the things they need to know at the back of their minds within this journey. So the other one is like your inclination towards open data and open tools. And I know you mentioned like how you're very passionate about, even the projects you're doing at Code for Africa around open data and having low-cost sensors that we are able to communities are able to leverage on. So just to briefly talk about like your inclination towards open data and open tools. I know you had something to do with OSM and the setting up of structures. Can you talk about that? What's your background with that? And then what is your inclination towards that? What makes you inclined towards open tools, open data, and your basically your entry point, even like to the OSM, and you realizing like, oh, it's really important to have all these initiatives that leverage on community, but also making it open and giving it back to a community to sort of drive innovation and change within the ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to like open data in general, so I would say while in university I had encountered it. I think it just wasn't called open data because, say, for example, when you were doing a research project or even assignments, and you had to look for data online, we at that time you'd explore and work with like open data geoportals or open data portals that exist, and you'd be able to get your data to either to run your project and to do anything that you needed to do. But I think for most of the part, I really didn't see it and understand it as an ecosystem. I just knew that if you needed some data, at times you can get to, I think that time there's the Kenya Open Data portal, and it just mean you can go here, you can search, you can get your data. There are also some other common ones, but I know like it's in itself, it's also an ecosystem. I think what opened me to the space as an ecosystem was through OpenStreetMap. So obviously that goes back to sort of youth mappers and everything, because youth mappers it's basically an OpenStreetMap community, but it's just that it's focused in university students. So the clubs are based in universities, and university students are the ones who are contributing and can also get access to all the opportunities that the network provides. So I'd say that was like the entry point in terms of just learning, okay, there's actually something like called open data, and like it's quite a huge thing and a huge space that people are contributing to in different ways. And then also just sort of having that internship with Kibera is also now also just understanding the importance and value of it. Because again, as I'd mentioned earlier, one thing is that when you, even for something like OpenStreetMap, if you start contributing to the space, what you notice is that a lot of the things are very volunteer led. So let me try and break it down, because when it comes, say, for example, to open geospatial data, you can look at it at from three perspectives. So say, for example, when it comes to open geospatial data, at times, say, for it's the government that's opening up their data, or an institution somewhere carried out a project and they've decided that they are going to openly share their data. So say, for example, a good example would be government runs the census, they release all the data to us. Okay, even if it's a PDF, it's still a data set. So that's some sort of opening up data, because I know for many years this is not information that we used to have. So say maybe, for example, they'd say we've carried out the census, we are now at 40 million Kenyans, and that's it. But nowadays, at least you can go, you can access the data, you can play around with it, you can have a look at what the distribution looks like across different things, if it's by geographic distribution and all of that. But also, you can have maybe organizations that have carried out a project or that are collecting data and sharing it openly. So, say, for example, like sensors, you're having this approach where you're getting in data and you're releasing it openly, and someone can go to the portal and they can access it. The second option is usually that we have like aggregating platforms. So a good example would be HDX, where it's like a platform, and then anyone anywhere can come in and publish their data. So from an individual who carries out like a research project and they collected this data, can come in and publish it. There are different organizations also come in and post their data there, and then you can go there and look at it. And then the last option that I usually have like to use is like crowdsourcing, which is now people coming in together to actually create the data. So it's not necessarily that it's something that I had collected previously for an entirely different project. It can be, yes, project focused, but the main approach is that you're actually creating the data. So you're going to the platform, maybe there's a gap that exists, maybe there's a place that's not been mapped on OpenStreetMap. as an example, and you decide to map the place, or maybe the place has been mapped, but different points of interest have not been mapped, and you are able to map and contribute to it. So, in terms of like my interests in the space, it's just, I guess, experiences, just seeing how difficult it can be at times to get access to data. And for maybe for a lot of people working in like more commercial and in industry, maybe it really makes sense, because if there's a project, or if you get a consulting gig and there's no data, okay, your first step just needs to be collecting the data.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of entities and organizations, especially when it comes, if you work in development and in the impact space, you notice that there's very limited financial resources for groups of people to start, for these organizations or these groups to start with data collection. Because, say, for example, if I'm already working in sanitation, my end solution is maybe that I'm providing these sanitation facilities. I would want my financial resources to go into sort of the construction and sort of the development of these facilities. So if I need to start with data collection, that can be a little bit difficult, because then it would mean putting in these financial resources there. So, but if you have then open data sets that people can leverage, even just to get sort of bare minimum insights to guide their decision making, then that ends up being useful. And that even goes the same way for things like even government departments, which again, I guess in this part of the world, it's better to see the financial resources really going into development or the actual solution versus into the data. I'm not saying that it's wrong to commercially collect data, but I'm just saying in certain contexts, it can be difficult to be able to do so, just because of the time and the financial resources that are available. So I just saw sort of the impact and the use for it in these spaces. And I think the good thing with the open technology ecosystem, so both open data and free and open source software, it's just that you're able to help. Like, I guess the most that you're usually, or at the bare minimum, is that you're going to put in your time to use your skills to be able to help the situation in one or the other. But I'd say, even in terms of, even if that's what's got me started, I think what's kept me going even up to this point, like looking into spaces to contribute to when it comes to this space, is that sort of seeing the impact and also the different ways that people are using the data. Because when it comes to OpenStreetMap, you do not just see things when it comes to community development. You see how crucial this data is when it comes to disaster response, which is also a very huge component when it comes to the OpenStreetMap community. Some of the biggest projects that have been done have been because a certain area or a certain region was struck by a disaster, and people were responding to it did not have information on even where to get started when it comes to offering their response. So, say for let me give an example. Let me use Kenya, because we've been having flooding. You're at Kenya Red Cross. You've been called in, or you have seen the news, and you know that maybe a certain community has been affected by flooding. So how do you get there? Do you just go in and sort of start trying to help as many people as possible? Yes, you can do that, but then that would be a little bit difficult. But if you picture a situation where, okay, the place that has been affected, you has been already been mapped, and so you have an idea of, okay, how many buildings are here. You also have maybe your census data that are showing, okay, in Nairobi, it's around 3 people per household. So you're able to sort of have an understanding that, okay, X number of people have been affected, because you've sort of used your buildings, footprints, data, and the census data, you've combined it, and you have an understanding that, okay, 1,000 people have been affected. It seems that no one has been able to come out of the area. So it means that at the end of our intervention, we need to have rescued at least 1,000 people. But also, what this means is also in terms of you working with the resources, you now also can plan accordingly. Because, say, for example, okay, even if I'm not rescuing people, but I need to provide blankets and food, if I can just make maybe a rough assumption and say, okay, it seems like 400 people live here, and I only go with resources for 400 people, then it means that 600 people would not get access to that. So having this data available ends up being helpful in terms of planning your response when it comes to disaster management. And then also something also that's usually very helpful is also in routing. So especially as we've seen, most of the places that are usually affected when it comes to disasters are usually more of the marginalized communities, minority groups. So you usually find it's places that are not mapped at all or well represented in maps that we have. So even just mapping things like roads gives you an understanding that, okay, for me to reach these people, I would need to drive through these roads. And also at times maybe you see, okay, there are not actually roads that are usable because of the data that you have, and then you have now to employ different kinds of technologies. If it's using drones, if it's using helicopters, which we saw also people being airlifted. So having the data gives you that kind of understanding, and like that's why I think in the OpenStreetMap community, yeah, one of the major users have been its use in disaster response. But I think one of the things also that makes it possible for this work to happen is that it's a lot of people coming in together to contribute to your work. So OpenStreetMap has around I don't know the exact number right now, but I know it's over 10 million registered users. So around the world. So that means if I have a community project, I'm able to leverage this community and this huge number of people to be able to quickly contribute in one way or the other and be able to make this data available. So at times you have very huge places mapped in 2 days, in one day, in 3 days, just because of our community effort and people coming in together. So yeah, I'd say when it comes to the open ecosystem, for me, it's just been the impact that it has and making data available. I think with more availability, it means more exploration. Say, for example, if you have an idea, it's easy for you to now access data and test it and test your hypothesis and explore different things and see what's possible, as opposed to, I think, what a lot of people experienced a while ago, where maybe it meant, okay, if I have an idea in healthcare, even when it comes to research, I have to go to the institution, talk to people to get you the data just for you to test something out and see if it would work even at all. Right now, I think if you are exploring something, it's just easy to get the data and get quick insights from you to be able to know, okay, do I proceed with this? Do I not? Or are there new ways that I had not considered before that are now coming out through the data? So for me, just yeah, allowing for that sort of experimentation, and obviously that affects things like innovation and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that gives us a very comprehensive view of the role of open data across the ecosystem. Out of curiosity, for the future for you, what do you look forward to? And then are you seeing yourself staying within the community management space? Are you seeing yourself transitioning to something else? What does that look like for you?
I guess for me, for the future, I would say I really don't know. Just I guess because of the openness that I do have. Because anyway, for me nowadays, I think what guides my decisions nowadays going forward, at least I have some sort of words to describe it, is that I look at the work to impact ratio, and obviously when looking at the work, I try as much as possible for it to crosscut the different interests that I have. I still do say geospatial technologies kind of my first love in one or the other when it comes to the career space and the professional journey. I would say titles do not matter per se, but if I'm open to being in roles that across geospatial technology, open technology, and also community. And obviously, at times, maybe a role might not be able to fulfill everything, but maybe one or two, or majorly one of those, and partly some of those. But for me, I think the big thing is just that it has to have impact. So the work that I do has to have some sort of impact in society. I think if that's not the case, I tend to lose interest in some ways. So I guess just growing within those spaces. So roles that have more impact in one way or the other, being able to use my skills to be able to help the communities that obviously that I engage with in one way or the other, or places that I live, or just the world in general, or the region and the country. So I wouldn't say that when I look at the future, I'm looking at, okay, specific roles or specific industries, but being open to anything that crosscuts my interests, and also the work to impact ratio for those roles. I don't know if that answers you, but yeah.
Even like the way you're saying for you it's work to impact ratio, that's very life changing. I really like that perspective. You've been in this community management space for a while. How have you seen it evolve? And then do you see this as something that is bound to grow beyond what we think it is, especially for guys who are looking for opportunities and they're like, is this something that is here to stay? Is it something that's very tricky for me to get into? What are your thoughts on that, on the community management space? And it being is it an opportunity that you think is here for a long term, and then for guys who are in campo are trying to figure out maybe this is the journey I want to take? Now that for me you're one of one, I've not seen a close or any journey that's close to yours, and so it would be interesting to get your perspective and seeing more people take up such opportunities and why it's important.
Yeah, I would say community roles are sort of there to stay. Just because I think one of the things about community roles is that it's people centered. So long as people are there, the role the role is sort of going to always exist in one way or the other. I think when it comes to community, a lot of roles that are available, especially within the JS space, tech space, are usually very voluntary. I think that's what I've seen so far. There are very few like full time community management roles within the space. Even if you look at the software development side of things, when it comes to developer advocates and developer relations roles, very few, very minimal. So I would obviously that's something that I would point out. But I'd say these are roles that I do not think would be going anywhere, anytime soon. Just because it's people centered. If there are people, there'll always be work in terms of coordinating and working with people in one way or the other. So yeah, it can be something to look at. If someone would like to pivot into the space, it's definitely something to consider and explore. And even if it's not a role that people are looking to explore full time, I think still I am always for people coming in together, community building in one way or the other. So, say for example, if you see within the geospatial industry there is a gap in terms of communities. I know there are already a bunch of communities that do exist there. I think I've seen a lot of general GIS communities. But yeah, if you see a gap that exists, people should explore sort of building communities, or also contributing to communities that exist in one way or the other. Most of them are usually volunteer led, so they're always looking for more hands. So yeah, I'd say a community role is not something that also someone has to look at it in terms of doing it full time, but also just in terms of working together with people and collaborating to do sort of amazing things. Is something that people should totally consider. And even if it's not leading, especially even for, okay, before even for university students, while you're university, um I think there's a lot of I don't know if it's still the case, but you tend to have more time in terms of what you can do and what you can explore. So those clubs that exist, in one or the other, I think it would be cool to just see how you can contribute to those. At the end of the day, you get to learn a thing or two about different things, especially maybe if it's a community that you're joining that's out of your, maybe the course that you're currently pursuing. You get to also meet different kinds of people who can be useful, or with whom you can work together on uh, incredible and impactful things within the society. So yeah, I'd say look at community roles on all these angles, and seeing more on what you can contribute versus maybe what you can get out of it. And then I don't know if if the stars align in your favor, and maybe during the process anyway, you learn that okay, this is actually something interesting that you can explore. Then it gets then to the point where you can see, you can learn, you can sort of make a decision if you want to pivot into it. Yeah, but within the tech ecosystem, I'd say these roles are there to stay uh, uh, for a very long time, unless I don't know, we're all saying we're going to be replaced by AI. So unless the chatbots really get really good, that there would be no need for people to organize, and all the work is done by AI. But I'd say yeah, the role is here to for a while.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you so much. This was very insightful. And guys, I'll try and link some of the links, or I'll ask Laura if she has some of the links to some of the opportunities she or the organizations she's talking about. But I'll try and link them. I was noting down some of her engagements with like youth mappers, the OSM, Map Kibera. I'll try and link some of these communities. I'll ask Laura for any additional resources she might have that she finds useful for you guys. But thank you so much, Laura, for making time for this. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I've learned so much. I think you've dropped a lot of nuggets, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, and I'll definitely call you back. We should definitely talk about Code for Africa project. And as usual, me, I'm just fangirling from this side. And thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this.
Yeah, thank you as well. Yeah, I'm actually looking at the time. I'm wondering how the time flew by. Yeah, but it's also been really cool. Just sharing. I hope it's helpful to someone. I hope it's not overwhelming. I remember preparing for the podcast, and I was just looking at like my profile, and was like, oh, okay, this can be also quite a lot. It's even quite a lot for me. So yeah, I really hope it's helpful to someone. But yeah, I've enjoyed this, and yeah, thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, until next time, that's bye from Laura and myself. And yeah, we'll have the podcast go up on Spotify and across all our other pages. Bye.